Yes, so last week we discussed that the 9th chapter has an acronym of King. First 3 verses talk about knowledge, the value of the knowledge and how it's realized. You can actually perceive it. And then in the next section, Krishna talks about his relationship with this creation. Then there will be a discussion about people who don't believe in, who are not worshippers. For example, there'll be a discussion of demigods here. And the last and the most important section is about the glories of bhakti. Some very important verses will be discussed in that last section. We talked about the transition from 8 to 9, and then the use of the word guhyatamam. The first verse of the 9th chapter talks of idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshami anasuyave Jnana Vijnana Sahitam Yaj Gyatva Mokshase Shubhat. So the word Guhyatamam was used here. So there are 3 degrees in which we talk about confidential matter. So Guhyad, that's the 2nd and 3rd chapter. It's confidential. We are not a body, we are a soul, talking about what karma is and what a relationship with this nature, with this world is, all that. But then also, we talked about a bit more confidential than the 2nd and 3rd was the Guhyataram, where Krishna starts speaking about himself. And lastly was Guhyatamam, which is being discussed in this chapter. So those degrees of levels are there. So coming back to the, anything that you remember from our last discussion, the first verse, anything of value that you picked up and took home? Anybody?
Prabhuji, I remember the comparison you made about the faith, like it is like a banana tree. One can shake it, but when it becomes firm, it becomes like a banyan tree. That is the example you described about the faith. I remember. And you also
Yes.
talked about the devotional engagement that we can have by hearing and all. And I remember faith is about having full conviction in Lord Krishna. So you've talked about in detail about the faith.
Yeah. Yes, faith. And anasuyave, non-enviousness, was the
Yeah.
important word of this one, was non-envious. And
Yes, yes.
because Arjuna is not envious of Krishna, and we talked about how all of us are envious of Krishna at some level. We all are. There is this generic envy where I'm self-conscious. I'm not Krishna conscious, right? I want to enjoy. I want to be the center of the world. If I am not praised in a gathering, I feel left out, and I feel, oh, this is not the place for me, right? So that's what causes the bondage. Forgetfulness of Krishna causes our bondage, right? So in envy, when we are envious of Krishna, there is no Krishna consciousness, right? So I'm just self-conscious. So um, so non-enviousness is includes everything. I think I mentioned that also, right? So lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride, and envy. Those are the 6 problems that we all face. Envy includes everything. Lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride, all are included in envy. So that is why Krishna is using the word anasuyave, because I am envious. When I'm envious, it's why? Because I have lust towards this material nature. Some things that I have attained in this world, I've become proud of it. Then if I have not achieved some things, I'm angry about it. And I put into illusion because I think my senses are perfect, which are not. So all that eventually makes up this big, huge mess that we call as envy. Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point you bring out. Anything else anybody had on mind, what we talked about, or anything you want to bring out? No? Okay. Yeah, so we can move on to the 2nd verse today. Let's see. And the 2nd verse, the way I was planning to go through it, it's a very long purport. I want to read that purport because Prabhupada explains each and every single word of that in the purport of the second verse. So it's very well written. Prabhupada gives a brilliant introduction. He says how Rajavidya is the king of knowledge. So let's first read the verse. Rajvidya Rajaguhyam Pavitramidam Uttamam Pratyakshavagmam Dharmayam Susukham Kartum Avyayam. So it's Rajavidya, it's the king of education. So it can also be looked at as Rajavidya is the king of knowledge, but it also means given to kings, right? Because the kings are the administrators, organizers of a civilization, right? So that's why it's called Rajavidya, and it's Rajaguhyam. It's the king of confidential knowledge. So we read in the last verse there was Guhyatamam. It's the most confidential knowledge, and it's most confidential because even though it's right there, people are not able to understand it. People are not able to pick it up. So it's a big challenge. It's Pavitram. It's purest. So let's read the translation. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge. And because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. Okay. So let's just go through the purport. How Prabhupada will explain each and every single word of the verse. Prabhupada doesn't do that for every single verse, but the first 3 verses of this chapter are very important. They're very, very important. Obviously, this is the most important chapter of Bhakti, and then the first 3 verses are the most important. They're giving us the essence that Krishna is clearly telling us. First of all, get rid of that envy, and then you'll get this state of happiness, which is everlasting. It gives you a perception of self, that who you are, what your true nature is. We all are looking for that. I'll read the first paragraph and then we all can take turns. This chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called the King of Education because it is the essence of all doctrines and philosophies explained before. Among the principal philosophers in India are Gautama, Kannada, Kapila, Yajnavalkya, Shandilya, and Vaishwanara. And finally, there is Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedanta Sutra. So there is no dearth of knowledge in the field of philosophy or transcendental knowledge. Now, the Lord says that this 9th chapter is the king of all such knowledge, the essence of all knowledge that can be derived from the study of Vedas and different kind of philosophy. It is the most confidential because confidential or transcendental knowledge involves understanding the difference between the body and the soul. And the king of all confidential knowledge culminates in devotional service. So Prabhupada is summarizing the whole purport in this one paragraph first here, that it's extremely confidential. And then what is the essence of that confidential knowledge? It is devotional service. It culminates in devotional service. That's the most important part, right? So all the Prabhupada has named some of the principal philosophers that have been here, and then there is Vyasadeva. He's pointing out. No, so unfortunately, in today's world, anybody who's good at juggling words, we think that person is a philosopher, but that's not true. Philosophy comes from a love. It comes from love of wisdom, right? So it's what gives you the darshan of the absolute truth. It gives you a vision of the absolute truth through philosophy. If we have heard something nice, but that didn't give us a clarity of the absolute truth behind it, it is not philosophy. It's just like a cloud in the name of philosophy that's covering the sun. So Krishna has indicated in this verse that spiritual knowledge is verifiable by one's own experience, right? And we'll see that Arjun takes steps towards such verification soon after understanding the Gita's 4 nutshell verses. That will be in the 10th chapter, 10.8 to 10.11, right? So let's just look at it. So it's Rajavidya, Rajaguhyam. So that's talked about. Generally, people are not educated in this confidential knowledge. They are educated in external knowledge. As far as ordinary education is concerned, people are involved with so many departments: politics, sociology, physics, chemistry, mathematics, astronomy, engineering, etc. There are so many departments of knowledge all over the world and many huge universities. But there is, unfortunately, no university or educational institution where the science of the spirit soul is instructed. Yet the soul is the most important part of the body. Without the presence of the soul, the body has no value. Still, people are placing great stress on the bodily necessities of life, not caring for the vital soul. So Prabhupada he's explaining that what is missing, right? Obviously, that what is missing is the knowledge of the soul, which is the most important knowledge, but it's missing, commonly missing out in the world. The Bhagavad Gita, especially from the second chapter on, stresses the importance of the soul. In the very beginning, the Lord says that this body is perishable, that soul is not perishable. Antavanta imhe deha nityasyokta sharirina. That is the confidential part of knowledge. Simply knowing that the spirit soul is different from this body and that its nature is immutable, indestructible, and eternal. But that gives no positive information about the soul. Sometimes people are under the impression that the soul is different from the body and that when the body is finished, one is liberated from the body, the soul remains in a void and becomes impersonal. So what Prabhupada is explaining here is that we mostly understand what the soul is. So we all generally, if life is on a number line, we are in the negative and we have no clue. We are fully engrossed in material activities. A point comes when somebody comes and speaks to us and explains to us out of mercy. Then we realize, okay, yes, I'm not a body, I'm a soul. But then what do we do with that information? So as Prabhupada is saying, simply knowing so knowing that is the confidential part, but that gives no positive information about it. But then that doesn't complete the knowledge, right? So if the most confidential part was just this information that I'm a soul and not a body, then we are already done with Bhagavad Gita in second chapter. We don't need anything else. But Prabhupada is telling us that no, even though you have come to the zero, you are in a negative, you come to the zero, now you know you're not a body or a soul, but we have to go into the positive, where we understand that, okay, yes, what is the role of a soul? What is my job as a soul? Okay, fine, I'm a soul, but what am I going to do with that information? I have to know what is the purpose of that soul. And the purpose is to connect with Krishna, right? But then, and Prabhupada is demolishing the basic concept that Mayavadis have, where they say that after you die, you go and merge. Either you remain in a void or become impersonal. So remain in a void is Shunyavadi, and impersonal is Nirvishesha. So Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshatarinan. That's what Prabhupada came to establish. That's what his Pranam Mantra tells us. That he came to demolish the concept, the flawed concept of Nirvishesha, impersonalism, and Shunyavadi, voidism. That after we die, either we merge into nothingness or we go back and merge with Krishna or some amorphous form of God somewhere. But Prabhupada is clearly telling that doesn't make sense. Why? Because I'm a body, I'm a soul, and I'm so active. My soul is so active. It's always looking for happiness. So how can it be inactive once it leaves this body? So Prabhupada is demolishing the concept, and he's still explaining the first two parts, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam here. And then he will move on to the other sections. Where is he? Somebody wants to read from here? This knowledge is the purest form. This he's going to talk about Pavitram here. Somebody would like to read?
I can read. Go ahead, Mother.
Yes, please.
This knowledge is the purest form of all activities, as explained in Vedic literature. In the Padma Purana, man's sinful activities have been analyzed and are shown to be the results of sin after sin. Those who are engaged in fruitive activities are entangled in different stages and forms of sinful reactions. For instance, when the seed of a particular tree is sown, the tree does not appear immediately to grow. It takes some time. It is first a small sprouting plant, then it assumes the form of a tree, then it flowers and bears fruit. And when it is complete, the flowers and the fruits are enjoyed by persons who have sown the seed of the tree. Similarly, a man performs a sinful act, and like a seed, it takes time to fructify. There are different stages. A sinful action may have already started within the individual, but the results or the fruit of that sinful action are still to be enjoyed. There are sins which are still in the form of a seed, and there are others which are already fructified and are giving us fruit, which we are enjoying as distress and pain.
Thank you. Yes, so Prabhupada here, he's talking about the Pavitram part here, the purest form. So, so Pavitram, he's now saying that, okay, first of all, even before he explains to us how is this knowledge Pavitra, he's explaining us why we are apavitra. Okay, what is it that this knowledge will make Pavitra? So Prabhupada is quoting that verse, aprarabdha phalam papam kutam bijam phalonmukham, where he's saying that there are many types of it, right? Vishnu Bhakti Ratatmana, that by Vishnu Bhakti, all of them are born. And I think we talked about it in one of the verses. Let me see if I can pull it out. In Nectar of Instruction, I remember there was something where we did that. 3. Oh no, sorry, I thought it was the third. No, it's third chapter. Let me share that so that we have a clear understanding what it's talking about. What Prabhupada is talking about here. Yes, this was it. Let me see if I can share this. Oh, can you see this? I'm sorry, just one. Oh no, you cannot see this, right? Yeah, so this is what I am talking about. So there is bija, there is a sinful desire, which converts to a sinful action. And then that does not manifest, it still stays there, that's a prarabdha. And then it manifests, causes suffering, that's prarabdha. And there's the beginning comes, is this kutam, is the deposition. It's a step before the desire. So Prabhupada is talking about the cycle of sin in this verse, that this is how we have been entangled, this is what has made us apavitra. This was the verse I was talking about. Aprarabdha phalam papam kutam bijam phalonmukham kame naiva praliyate Vishnu Bhakti Ratatmana. That all the sins, all these that have been mentioned here, bijam, kutam, papam, prarabdha, they all get vanished when we do bhakti. Okay, so this is something to keep in mind. This is what Prabhupada is referring to in here. So, and talking about in Padma Purana, there are different stages, right? And they all eventually give us distress and pain. And giving us fruits, yes. So can somebody carry on from here as explained?
I can read, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yes, yes, please.
As explained in the 28th verse of 7th chapter, a person who has completely ended the reaction of all sinful activities and who is fully engaged in pious activities begin freed from the duality of material world, becomes engaged in devotional services to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. In other words, those who are actually engaged in the, can you scroll down with me? In the devotional service of the Supreme Lord are already freed from all reaction. This statement is confirmed in the Padma Purana. Apira bhava palma papam kutam bram pralomukham kamanave playate Vishnu Bhakti Ratamam. For those who are engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all sinful reaction, whether fruitified in the stalk in the form of a seed, gradually vanishes. Therefore, the purifying potency of devotional service is very strong, and it is called Pravitram Uttamamam, the purest Uttam meaning transcendental, transcendental, tamas meaning the material world of darkness, and uttam means that which is transcendental to material activities. Devotional activities are never to be considered material, although sometimes it appears that devotees are engaged just like ordinary men. One who can see and is familiar with devotional services will know that they are not material activities. They are all spiritual and devotional, uncontaminated by material mode of nature.
Okay, yes, we'll take a pause here. Yes. So, pavitram, just the purest form of activity. And activity, the word activity itself is important because we have to do activity. We cannot be without activity. And Prabhupada is saying, as explained the 28th verse of the 7th chapter, who's completely ended the reaction of all sinful activity. So in the 27th and 28th verse, Krishna in the 7th chapter, remember, he talked about how we all are embroiled in the duality, Ichha Dvesha Samuthena Dvanda Mohena Bharata, that we all are born in Ichha and Dvesha, desire, the duality of desire and envy. So we're born in that. But then Krishna says that Yesha to antagatam papam jananam punya karmam te dvanda moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridhavrta. That when all these doubts and illusion, the envy is gone away, then we are able to invest in our bhakti process. Right? Doubt is a big hindrance to our growth in bhakti. We'll read more about it as we move forward. But doubt is what doesn't let our faith grow in bhakti. That's what Krishna is saying, that when all our, when these reactions have been completely ended, we become freed from the duality of this world. And, then who are actually engaged in devotional service are always already freed from all the reactions. So when somebody comes to devotional service of the Lord, he or she is already freed from those reactions. That's how he or she has come to those reactions. When we take initiation, Krishna says that Diksha Kale Bhakta Kare Atma Samarpan Te Krishna Kare Atma Sama. Then Krishna starts taking him as his own. Once the person surrenders or takes shelter of a guru through the bona fide process of initiation. So then it's no more reactions that are coming to us. It's Krishna's mercy coming in a very, predefined form, very something that's been designed specifically for me to get me to get rid of the last vestiges of desires that I have in my heart. That's what is the whole, whatever I'm seeing once we have come into devotional service. So there are no more reactions. They're just Krishna sending a very customized set of reactions to us so that we can get rid of the last vestiges of desires. So that's what Prabhupada is explaining. So that's why it's pavitra, because by this activity, we are able to get rid of all the sorts of sinful reactions. Everything goes away, right? So, and then he's saying pavitram uttamam. It's transcendental. So it's pavitram is being described, and then uttama. Why? It's transcendental. Devotional services are never to be considered material, although sometimes it appears that devotees are engaged just like ordinary men. One who can see and is familiar with the devotional service will know that they are not material activities. They are all spiritual and devotional, uncontaminated by material modes of nature. Yes. So people who are doing pure devotional service, then that person there's nothing material in that, even though that person might be doing activities very similar to ordinary men. Okay. So now coming to the perceive section. I'll show you the verse once again so that you can understand the chronology that Prabhupada is going through. Rajvidya Rajguhyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam. Now next Prabhupada is going to talk about Prataksha Bhagmam, which is Prataksha Bhagmam means, where is that? By direct experience understood. It's understood by direct experience. So let's read about that. Yes, somebody can please read from here.
No, Prabhuji, I can read that.
Yes, please.
Hare Krishna. It is said that the execution of devotional service is so perfect that one can perceive the results directly. This direct result is actually perceived, and we have practical experience that any person who is chanting the holy name of Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. In course of chanting without offenses, feels some transcendental pleasure and very quickly become purified of all material contamination. This is actually seen. Furthermore, if one engages not only in the hearing but in trying to broadcast the message of devotional activities as well, or if he engages himself in helping the missionary activities of Krishna consciousness, he gradually feels spiritual progress. This advancement in spiritual life does not depend on any kind of previous education or qualification. The method itself is so pure that by simply engaging in it, one becomes pure. Shall I continue, Prabhu?
I'm just seeing if this is. Is that there's a verse that was. Yes, please go ahead. Let me go back again. Yes, please go ahead from here, bro.
In the Vedanta Sutra 3.2.26, this is also described the following words: Prakashasas cha karmani abhyasat. Devotional service is so potent that simply by engaging in the activities of devotional service, one becomes enlightened without a doubt. A practical example of this can be seen in the previous life of Narad, who in that life happened to be the son of maidservant. He had no education, nor he born into a high family. But when his mother was engaged in serving great devotees, Narada also became engaged, and sometimes, in the absence of his mother, he would serve the great devotees himself. Narada personally says, Uchchista lipan anumodito dvija sakrat sma bhunjne tad apasta kilabhisha evam pravrastasya vishuddha chetasas tadharma ivatma ruchi prajayate. In this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.25, Narada described his previous life to his disciple Vyasadeva. He says that while engaged as a boy servant for those purified devotees during the 4 months of their stay, he was intimately associating with them. Sometimes those sages left remnants of food on their dishes, and the boy who would wash their dishes wanted to taste the remnants. So he asked the great devotees for their permission, and when they gave it, Narada ate those remnants and consequently became freed from all sinful reactions. All he went on eating, he gradually became as pure-hearted as the sages. The great devotees relished the taste of unceasing devotional service to the Lord by hearing and chanting, and Narada gradually developed the same taste. Narada says further, Tatrana viham Krishna katah pragyatamam anugrahin shravram manohara tat shraddhaya me nupadam vishranavata priyastre anga mama bhavad ruchi. Sorry, Prabhuji, I butchered the entire shloka. Sorry about that. By associating with the sages, Narada got the taste of hearing and chanting the glories of Lord, and he developed a great desire for devotional service. Therefore, as described in the Vedanta Sutra, Prakasas cha karmane abhyasat, if one is engaged simply in the act of devotional service, everything is revealed to him automatically, and he can understand. This is called pratyaksa, directly perceived. Hare Krishna.
Yes, sure. Yes. No, you didn't butcher it, Prabhu. We all should read verses. Sanskrit is a very potent language in itself. It's very potent. When we read it, it has a very different effect on our intelligence, on our mind. So yeah, we might not be perfect, but then when we keep reading it, you'll start to understand. It's just a matter of repetition. For example, an A with a dash on top, it becomes A. An S with a dash with this hyphen on top is sh. And if a T has a dot on it, it becomes t. It's a very sharp T. So you'll get to know it as we all move forward. We get to know this. So that way, then we can read it in a better way. You didn't butcher it. You're pretty good. So yeah. So now this is Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmayam. So Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmayam means, and then Prabhupada is giving an example. Go back to start, right? So it's direct result that we can perceive, right? So direct perception is, so there's a verse in the 11th canto. Let me see if I can pull that verse up, which talks about how this is a direct perception. That. Second. Yes, okay. So it's 11:2:42 for those who want to keep record. Let me share it also. It's 11:2:42. So the verse is Bhakti Parishanu Bhavo Virakti Anyatra Chai Shatrika Ek Kala Prapadyamanasya Yathashnata Siyus Tushti Pushti Shudapayo Anughashan. Devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things. These three occur simultaneously for one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the same way that pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger come simultaneously and increasingly with each bite or a person engaged in eating. So this is a very good analogy that's been given in Bhagavatam about eating. Nobody will come and tell you that you are progressing in bhakti. Yes, obviously, your guru can tell you that. The guru is transcendental. But it's also a self-realization that we will get. For example, a very common thing that we all will observe is detachment from other things. Our interest in bhakti and bhakti-related activities, it increases when we have been sincere in our investment in bhakti. And when I say sincere, is that we have been doing our chanting, we have our 4 regulative principles. With a very sincere heart, we are trying to get rid of the sins that are in my heart. Right? 4 regulative principle chanting, all these external things, they help. For sure, they're extremely beneficial. Equally beneficial is cleaning our heart, to make a very sincere effort to clean our hearts, right? In one of his poems, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says that E dushta hirdaya kama adi ripuchaya kuti nati pratisthasha satya satharaya. So what he's saying is that dushta hirdaya kama, there is, in my heart there is kama, lust. E dushta hirdaya kama adi ripuchaya, there are other enemies. And kuti nati, there is duplicity. Pratisthasha, desire for pride. Kuti nati pratisthasha Satya, and there are those 6 enemies: lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride, envy. They are there, they're commonly there. But then Bhaktivinoda Thakur has even identified other things. There is duplicity, there is a desire for pride. All these things exist in my heart. But when I grow in bhakti, I notice that I become detached from them slowly and steadily. Over years, you will notice that probably 5-7 years ago, I was so desirous of being the one in the limelight, but I'm not to that extent anymore, or I might have completely given it up. Depends on the extent of my sincerity. So that's one very practical difference that we all observe. Right? Detachment from other things. There is a direct experience of Supreme Lord. What does that mean? Obviously, we're not going to see Krishna right away. I'm not at that point yet, like like a pure Uttam Adhikari. But what does it mean is that there'll be a direct experience of the Supreme Lord, because what will happen is that in our life we will have experiences where we will see the hand of Krishna. Right? At every moment, we'll see a hand of Krishna, and not just currently. You can go back and retrospectively look at your entire life, and you will see that there was a hand of Krishna in there. Now, you can always connect the dots in the past if you bring Krishna into the picture. Why didn't I get what I wanted, the job that I was looking for, or or you know, probably the house I wanted to buy, why I didn't get it, and all those sorts of things that they come to my mind, come to us. You know, we you know, so all these things we can have direct experience. That's the direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and we all should document those direct experiences of the Supreme Lord. So you should write them down. You know? For example, something happened today, and you realize that, oh yes, you know, this something, you know, this is where Krishna helped me today. Or this could have happened, but it helped me. And anything, it could be even small things. You know, a couple of weeks ago, my car broke down on the highway. You know, there was some problem in the engine, and then I couldn't drive it anymore. I had to park on the side. And but worse things could have happened. You know, there could have been a failure when I was driving at a high speed and then, you know, the car could have gone out of my control. But luckily, I was at a position where I could just pull off easily. My car broke down. So I can see Krishna's hand in that. You know, and so many other things you'll see Krishna's hand in your life. So that's the direct experience of Supreme Lord. And as I said, we should always document these things in our life, you know, because these experiences are like matchsticks burning in the darkness. Rarely does it happen that there will be a huge bulb that will go on in your life, your realization. It will be very much like tiny matchsticks going off in the dark room. It'll go off, it'll be there for a minute, that'll be gone. But if you document them, then you can preserve them forever. So that's the direct experience. Devotion in your heart will be demonstrated by your growing interest in devotional activities. You know, you're preaching to somebody, you're giving a class, you're distributing books, you're cooking prasadam, you're whatever it may be. You start feeling that, oh, I really like this activity. I want to do it more. Earlier it would have been, oh my God, I have to go and watch this movie. What am I doing here? No, but that's gone. I don't want to watch that movie. I want to do this. So this is a very important verse that exemplifies how the direct experience of bhakti happens. It's 11:242 once again, if somebody wants to keep track. And I'll just quickly show you a part where which I thought was important. Okay, let it be. You can read this purport at your leisure. This is an important purport. So let's go back to where we were. Pratyaksha Bhagmam. We have Pratyaksha Bhagmam, and now we go to Dharmayam. So this was Pratyaksha Bhagmam. So when we practice bhakti, we get immediate taste. We know we all have different tastes, right? So somebody might be interested in book distribution, somebody in cooking prasadam, somebody in preaching, and we all have our different tastes. We all are individual. We all have a different relationship with Krishna. So so many things we talked about will become peaceful, will become focused in life. These are the direct perceptions of bhakti. Okay, so now we'll come to the part of dharmayam. So we have Rajvidya, Rajaguhyam, Pavitram idam uttamam, Pratyaksha Bhagmam, Dharmayam. Then last is Susukham Kartum Abhyayam. So where is the part? Dharmayam. Yes, somebody can read Dharmayam.
I can read from.
Yes, please.
The word dharmayam means the path of religion. Narada was actually a son of a maid servant. He had no opportunity to go to school. He was simply assisting his mother, and fortunately his mother rendered some service to the devotees. The child Narada has got the opportunity and simply by associating achieved the highest goal of all religion. The highest goal of all religion is devotional service. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Sa mai punsha paro dharma yato bhakti adokshajay. Religious people generally do not know that the highest perfection of religion is the attainment of devotional service. As we have already discussed in regard, as we have already discussed in regard to the last verse of chapter 8, Videshu Yagneshu Tapushu Chaiva. Generally, Vedic knowledge is required for the self-realization. But here, although Narada never went to the school of the spiritual master and was not educated in the Vedic principles, he acquired the highest value results of Vedic study. This process is so potent that even without performing the religious process regularly, one can be raised to the highest perfection. How is this possible? This is also confirmed in Vedic literature, Acharyam Puruso Veda. One who is in the association with great acharyas, even if he is not educated or has never studied in the Vedas, can become familiar with all the knowledge necessary for self-realization. Do I go further?
No, we'll pause here because Susukham is the next. So yes, so now Prabhupada is explaining the Dharmayam part, right? So once Prabhupada somebody asked Prabhupada, what happens if, when you're leaving your body, you realize that all this is a farce. This is not true. There is no God, there is no Krishna, there is no, Goloka, and all this is there. So Prabhupada said, that's fine. We're not losing out on anything. Our lifestyle is so much better than the materialists. What are materialists eating? Yeah, they're killing animals. They're converting their body into a graveyard. Look at us. We're eating these perfect foods. Such fresh food, and all the other acts. So we are not missing out on anything, right? But Prabhupada questioned back to that person that just imagine that how would you feel if when you are leaving your body, then you realize, no, actually God is there. Then what will you do? So Prabhupada was explaining that, there is nothing lost when you're following this path of religion, this dharmayam, right? So once Prabhupada in 1973, there was this show, TV show used to come. It was called the Les Crane Show. And in that, the host was known to ask questions that would incite, anger in the guest. And he invited Prabhupada, and then he invited a Christian priest also. And he asked Prabhupada that, what is your opinion of other religions? He thought that Prabhupada will say something provocative and the other person will get angry and so forth. But Prabhupada said that any religion that teaches the love of God is acceptable to us. Right? So we have a very simple and objective criteria. How much you know God and how much do you do devotional service? As simple as that. Prabhupada never said, no, only when you become a Hindu, will you be a devotee, or you'll learn to love God. Prabhupada said everybody can. And when the same question was asked by the other guest, who was a Christian priest, he just fumbled. He said, no, only people who follow the Christ will go back home. So that there itself, Prabhupada, he was so perfect in his answers, right? That he knew what was the highest perfection in the path of religion. That is attainment of devotional service. And Prabhupada is quoting this verse called Acharyavan Purusho Veda. So what it means is that Acharyavan is one who has a Purusha. Right? We say Dhanvan. Dhanvan is one who has money. So the word Acharyavan means one who has an Acharya. The word Purusho means person, and the Veda means knowledgeable. A person who has an Acharya as a teacher, that person becomes knowledgeable. Right? When Prabhupada came to US, there were so many philosophies that were rampant all over the world. Right? Darwin's theory, theory of Big Bang and so forth. They might be prevalent. I'm not saying no. Prabhupada had not read all of them, right? But then he gave a perfect counter arguments for such philosophies. He would reply in such a way that will leave people speechless, right? So because he knew, he was knowledgeable. He was Acharyavan Purusho Veda. Because he was following the Acharyas, his spiritual master, he was completely, fully knowledgeable. So what is real Dharmayam? Real Dharmayam is devotional service, because it teaches how to know God and how to love him. That is why Prabhupada is also quoting 1.2.6 from Srimad Bhagavatam. Where was that? This is it. First canto, second chapter, verse number 6. Savai pumsham paro dharmo yato bhakti radhokshaje ahetuki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. Ahetuki apratihata. That unconditional love to God is what bhakti teaches us, what the path of religion is. So, and then Prabhupada he's bringing out a very important point, that we don't have to be educated in the Vedic principles. Prabhupada had not read the Vedas, but he knew the essence of it because he was following an Acharya. So it's a mystical process, but it's also, something that you can perceive. I cannot see that mercy of my God coming, of my spiritual master coming to me. Obviously, I can experience it, but there is no something that you can document physically, seeing, oh yes, there is some energy wave coming from it. But then I know that my spiritual master's mercy is coming to me. And so similarly, Prabhupada was an expert in all these philosophies because he was Acharyavan Purusho Veda. Right? So interestingly, if you see, what do our scriptures say? Who are the perfect yogis? The gopis. Right? They knew no Vedas. Right? But their position is glorified. This is the power of bhakti, right? One can attain perfection without even reading other shastras, right? So that's the beauty of this process. And it's something I want to point out. This first canto, second chapter is very important. Prabhupada said, one who memorizes this you surely go back home, back to Godhead. So if you have the stamina, if you have the desire, memorize these 34 verses. First canto, second chapter. Beautiful chapter. Okay, so last one, Susukham. Somebody wants to read Susukham.
Sure, Prabhuji, I can go on.
Yes, please.
The process of devotional service is a very happy one, Susukham. Why devotional service consists of Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.23. So one can simply hear the chanting of the glories of the Lord, or can attend philosophical lectures on transcendental knowledge given by authorized acharyas. Simply by sitting, one can learn that then one can eat the remnants of the food offered to God, nice palatable dishes. In every state, devotional service is joyful. One can execute devotional service even in the most poverty-stricken condition. The Lord says, Patram Puspam Phalam Toyam. He is ready to accept from the devotee any kind of offering, never mind what, even a leaf, a flower, a bit of fruit, or a little water, which are all available in every part of the world, can be offered by any person, regardless of social position, and will be accepted if offered with love. There are many instances in history simply by tasting the tulasi leaves offered to the lotus feet of the Lord. Great sages like Sanat Kumara became great devotees. Therefore, the devotional process is very nice and it can be executed in a happy mood. God accepts only the love with which things are offered to him. It is
Yes. We'll pause here.
Okay.
Susukham. So God accepts only the love with which things are also. So it's the love that God is looking for, not the things that you're off. Obviously, things are also important, but the more important part is the love. And so Prabhupada is saying that it's Susukham, and right? It's a happy one. So because it consists simple activities, right? Nobody is asking you, going through the elevating your chakras, sitting down, controlling your mind, and to aim, bring the chakras up from Muladhara all the way to Anahata and all that. So all the other activities, they are very intense. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, there's so much that is all simple, right? Everybody likes to hear. People like to sing, chant. You can read about Krishna, Smaranam. Everybody likes some seva. Everybody has some or the other seva. Some people like prasadam distribution. Some people like to cook. Some people like book distribution, all that. So everybody, so it's a very simple process, right? So, so that's the beauty. So now the example I was giving, right? Prabhupada was asked that, what if there is no God? So Prabhupada said, we are not losing out on anything. Our activities are simple, but still they have no side effects and they're free of cost, right? There are no side effects and just free of cost, right? And we all can find one thing that gives us pleasure in bhakti. We all have that one thing. You all have that. Prabhupada is giving reference to the four Kumaras, Sanak, Sanatana, Sanandana, and Sanat Kumara. This is coming from the third canto. There is a verse in the third canto where when they go to Vaikuntha and then the Jai Vijay refuse, don't let them get in and they curse them. In that story, when Vishnu gets to know that his servants have done something wrong and they're being cursed, he comes running to the gate. And even before the four Kumaras see Vishnu, they smell the fragrance of the tulsi leaves from his feet. Tasyarvinda nayanasya padarvinda kinjal kamishri tulasi makaranda vayu. Right, so tulasi makaranda vayu. Makarand is coming through that air, vayu. So what does it do? It changes their heart. Sangshogham akshara jusham. That comes in the later part of the verse. So it changes their heart. Right? So that's the beauty of bhakti. It's susukham, and it cleans up our heart. It makes us very happy, and it changes our heart immediately when we get engaged in bhakti. So that's what Prabhupada is quoting here. And where's that? So he gives this and he says that because it's simple is because Krishna is not asking for anything out of the world. Even a leaf, a flower, patram, pushpam, phalam, toyam, yo me bhaktya parachati. Tadham bhakti upartam ashnami priyatatmana. That's the 26th verse of this chapter. We'll read it. So Krishna is saying, you don't give me anything fancy. Just give me a leaf, a flower, I'll be happy. We have the story of Sanatan Goswami, who used to keep his deities in a cloth on a tree, and he would just offer them some chapati, and the deities would say to him, Sanatana, can you please give us some salt with it? And Sanatana Goswami would get angry. He says, no, today you're asking for salt, tomorrow you'll ask for sabji, and day after tomorrow you'll ask me to get married so that my wife can come and serve you nicely. And then you'll, no, I don't want to do it. This is the best I can give you, so be happy. And Krishna was very happy in that. And and Krishna and Sanatana Goswami even said that, if you want something opulent for you, go get a temple made for yourself. So that's a love of a devotee. We cannot say that. I mean, I'm not at that level, but that's the love of a pure devotee to God, and towards service. So Krishna will accept everything as long as it's full of love. And Sanatana, he's saying that it has the capacity to change our heart. That is why Prabhupada is giving the example of the 4 Kumaras. Okay, so last 2 paragraphs, let's get this done. It is said here that this devotional service is eternally existing. It is not, as the Mayavadi philosophers claim. Although they sometimes take to so-called devotional service, their idea is that as long as they are not liberated, they will continue their devotional service. But at the end, when they become liberated, they will become one with God. Such temporary time-serving devotional service is not accepted as pure devotional service. Actual devotional service continues even after liberation. When the devotee goes to the spiritual planet in the kingdom of the God, he is also engaged there in serving the Supreme Lord. He does not try to become one with the Supreme Lord. As will be seen in Bhagavad Gita, and this is a summary of the actual devotional service begins after liberation. After one is liberated, when one is situated in the Brahman position, Brahma Bhuta, one's devotional service begins. Sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. No one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by executing Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, or any other yoga independently. But by these yogic methods, one can make a little progress towards Bhakti Yoga. But without coming to the stage of devotional service, one cannot understand what is the personality of Godhead. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also confirmed that when one becomes purified by executing the devotional service by executing the process of devotional service, especially by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita from realized souls, then he can understand the science of Krishna or science of God. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogata. When one's heart is cleared of all the nonsense, then one can understand what God is. Thus, the process of devotional service of Krishna consciousness is the king of all education and the king of all confidential knowledge. It is the purest form of religion, and it can be executed joyfully without difficulty. Therefore, one should adopt it. Prabhupada ends with a bang. He says, therefore, one should adopt it. So it is eternally existing. Right? There is an end with an action, asking us to take an action. So I'll take a few minutes, and I'll just probably present something that will complicate your life further if it's already not enough complicated. I just wanted to show you something. I would stress on the brilliance of Prabhupada. So let me confuse you further. Where's this? So if you notice that in any theme of speaking, any subject matter, there is a general standard that is followed, right? There is an opening, there's a topic in one statement and its brief explanation, and then you give a body, right? What's the examples? You clarify doubts, takes questions. And lastly, there's a conclusion. So if you notice the way Prabhupada presents this purport, I'm just taking this purport as an example because this is one of the best purports Prabhupada has. Obviously, every purport is amazing. But then I wanted to stress on how Prabhupada, and this goes back to telling us how this is Pavitram, and how it is, even though Prabhupada didn't know Vedas, he had not read the Vedas, but the whole essence of Vedas had been revealed to him in his heart because he was Acharya Van Purusha Veda. He was following his spiritual master with full sincerity and dedication. That's all he needed to do. And so you'll see this, how does it make it so brilliant, how Prabhupada is presenting. So if you'll notice, this is a reference, if you want to read it further in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, this verse gives this style of explanation. So pratigya is declaration of the purpose. Prabhupada starts the purport of this purport by telling us what is the purpose of this. That the king of all confidential knowledge culminates in devotional service. This is the thesis of the whole purport Prabhupada is giving, how everything is connected to devotional service. He starts there. Then he gives reasoning. So the paragraph 2 was reasoning, right? Why am I talking about this? He talked about that, how different, there are so many other sections in the society, sociology and all that, but there is no place for soul, how to learn the science of soul. So he's giving reasons why this must be expressed, why this must be talked about. Then he talks of udharana. He's talking about examples. There was an example of flowers and fruits. We talked about the kutam, bijam, phalan, mukan. That was Prabhupada exemplified that with an example of flowers and fruits, right? And then he talks about application. He's giving the essence that he's exemplary. So the whole purport, the remaining part, he explained and applied each and every term of that. Lastly, nigamana is conclusion. Now the conclusion has two things. Prabhupada is supporting his statements with scriptures. He talks about everything. He talks about Srimad Bhagavatam. He talks about Padma Purana. He talks about other shastras where he quotes Acharya Van Purusha Veda from. And then he concludes with one statement. Therefore, one should adopt it. So the reason I wanted to bring this theme out, before I wrap up and let these other speakers talk about, you have to understand that the brilliance of Prabhupada is there because Prabhupada was sincere and he was fully dedicated to his spiritual master. He didn't have to read Vedas. This knowledge was revealed to him from within his heart because of his sincerity to his spiritual master, because of his sincerity, dedication, and enthusiasm in this process, his deep conviction, his intense faith in this process. When somebody would question him, his faith wouldn't shake like my faith shakes. Like as I said, my faith is like a banyan tree. Easily wind comes and it gets shaken. Prabhupada's faith was like mine is a banana tree. Prabhupada's faith was like a banyan tree. Air cannot even shake an inch of it. It actually gets stronger when somebody comes and questions, and that's what Prabhupada was able to give answers that left people speechless. That was the beauty of that. That's the oceanic intelligence of Prabhupada. So this style is given in the Shastras. This is not something that is in the Bhagavad Gita. But Prabhupada already knew this. How was it? Once again, I'm probably repeating myself, but then because he was fully sincere to his spiritual master. All the knowledge of Vedas will be manifested in my heart. All Krishna is asking is follow me with sincerity and faith. And if following Krishna means following our spiritual master, following the acharyas in the disciplic succession. Let me see if I have anything else beyond this. Oh, this is the next verse, I think. But yes, so this is a very important presenting. This stresses on how important Prabhupada's purports are for us. Okay. So Prabhupada talks about in detail. You can read the purport for Adi Leela. He talks about all these udharana, upnaya, nigamana, all that in there. I just picked this section, this verse as an example to highlight this process because Prabhupada has brilliantly written it. Okay, then going back to the, I cannot go back here. So yes, so this was the second purport, and I'll take a pause here. We'll start the third one next week. There's a couple of people who are going to speak. Which one? Achyutarade Mataji and Hemangini Mataji. Which one has these 7 and 8? Who has 7 and 8?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, I have 7 and 8. Achyutarade.
Okay. Do you want to share what you have, or do you want me to share what you have? What do you want to do?
I'll try, Prabhu, if it can be shared, or else I'll ask you to.
Okay. Yes, please. And just give me 1 second. Let me